You're out.
Come on, mate. We did nothing.
Go on, pal. Join your mates.
Hey! Good on you, hero.
Got us all kicked out, just like the swans. Weak as piss.
Say it again, dickhead.
Weak as piss.
Get up, you maggot.
Oh my God, what have you done?
Weak as piss.
Joe!
Joe.
Joe!
Somebody call
Joe! Joe!
Joe.
Joe! Oh my God! Joe! Joe!
Welcome to the Supreme Court of Victoria.
No further questions, Your Honour.
This is where they hear the most serious criminal and complex civil matters in the state, as well as appeals from other Victorian courts and tribunals. Today you will watch the trial of Justin Moore, an 18-year-old high school student accused of the manslaughter of fellow classmate Joe Strathmore.
Silence, all stand. All persons having business before this honourable court are commanded to give their attendance and they shall be heard. God save the Queen. Be seated, please.
Will the accused please stand? Is your full name Justin James Moore?
It is.
Justin James Moore, you are charged that on the 2nd of April 2016, you killed Joseph Avery Strathmore. How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Mr. Moore, you may be seated.
Since Justin has pleaded not guilty, the court will now proceed with a trial, which starts with the selection of a jury.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to select a jury. You must ask to be excused if you know or knew the accused, deceased, or any members of their families. You must also be excused if you know any of the witnesses, lawyers, or court officers involved in the case. You should also ask to be excused if you feel that you would be severely inconvenienced if required to attend court for the next 3 weeks or so. But please note, jury service is a very important civic obligation, and I won't be able to excuse you on this ground unless the inconvenience to you or others would be out of the ordinary. Madam Associate, would you call through the panel?
Ladies and gentlemen summoned as jurors, as your panel number is called, please answer present but remain seated. If you wish to be excused, please answer excuse and remain in your seats. Juror 107.
Present.
Juror 159.
Excuse.
Juror 43.
Present.
Juror 3.
Present.
Juror 24.
Excuse.
What is your panel number?
159.
Please repeat after me. I do solemnly, sincerely declare and affirm
I do solemnly, sincerely declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Why do you wish to be excused from serving on this jury?
My son is friends with Joe's older brother, Your Honour. They work together at the local shopping centre.
Very well, you're excused. You may step down.
While the judge determines the law to be applied in the case, the jury decides the verdict.
Members of the jury panel, as your numbers and occupations are called, please walk past the accused and take a seat in the jury box, unless challenged by the accused or stood aside by the prosecution.
Your Honour, may my instructing solicitor assist Mr. Moore?
Yes, go ahead.
Juror 107, electrician. Juror 43, nurse.
Challenge.
Juror 24, student. Juror 3, banker. Juror 10, high school teacher.
Stand aside, Your Honour.
Juror 32.
Both the defence and prosecution can challenge or stand aside Up to 6 prospective jurors without reason.
Members of the jury, Justin Moore is charged with manslaughter. To that charge, he has pleaded not guilty. For his trial, he has placed himself in your hands. Your duty, therefore, is to say whether he is guilty or not guilty. Listen carefully to the evidence.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a case about a young man who could not control his anger, which ultimately led to the death of one of his classmates. The defence may argue that the death was an accident. However, we will show that the accused intentionally punched Joe Strathmore, which ultimately caused his death. At the conclusion of this case, we will ask you to find Justin Moore guilty of manslaughter. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is indeed a case about the death of a young man. However, not due to the actions of Justin, but by a simple accident. What the prosecution didn't say in their opening address is that the deceased was heavily intoxicated at the time of the incident. Now, this impaired his balance and motor functions, which ultimately led him to trip and fall. Justin Moore is not guilty of manslaughter. And the evidence...
Under our legal system, the prosecution has the burden of proof. The accused doesn't have to prove that they're innocent.
And return a verdict of not guilty.
The evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
What is your full name?
Matthew Blake Thompson.
Please explain how you know the accused.
He's my mate. We're in the same year at school.
Were you there on the night of the incident?
Yes, we were watching the footy at the Sherlock Arms.
Did anyone approach you?
Yeah, when the game finished, a couple of guys from our school came up to us, started talking to us about the game.
And what did Justin do?
Justin was angry that his team lost. Joe kept annoying him about it. Wouldn't let up, you know. Someone started shouting and a security guard showed up. He told us to knock it off and get out.
And then what happened?
We all left the pub, but Justin was still really mad. There was more shouting and suddenly they were pushing and shoving each other. Joe said something and Justin just lost it. He went up to Joe and hit him. Joe fell, hit his head on the ground. It was awful.
Thank you, Matthew. No further questions.
Mr. Thompson, had you been drinking that evening?
Yes.
And how much had you had to drink?
I don't know, a few beers.
How many, Mr. Thompson?
7, maybe 8.
And how far away do you say you were standing when you saw my client hit the deceased?
About 4 or so metres, I guess.
Do you normally wear prescription glasses, Mr. Thompson?
Sometimes. I don't wear them all the time.
Well, were you wearing your glasses on the night of the incident?
No, but I know what I saw.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Mr. Prosecutor?
Matthew, when do you normally wear your prescription glasses?
For driving, usually. They're not very strong.
So you don't need to wear them all the time?
No, I can see just fine.
Thank you, Matthew. No further questions.
Once the prosecution has finished, the defence calls in its witnesses.
What is your full name?
Jamie Offen.
And what is your occupation?
I'm a security guard and I work at the Sherlock Arms pub.
Mr. Offen, were you working at the Sherlock Arms on the night of the incident?
Yes, I was.
Oh, did you see the deceased that evening?
Yeah, I remember him. He and his mates were really drunk. I saw him fall down on the floor about half an hour before the fight happened. He yelled something out and his mates had to pick him up.
Thank you, Mr. Offen. No further questions, Your Honour.
Mr. Prosecutor?
After closing statements have been heard, the judge charges the jury and reminds them that their decision must be unanimous.
You are the judges of the facts, and as such, it is your duty to determine whether the evidence satisfies you beyond reasonable doubt of the guilt of the accused.
Will the accused please stand? Have you reached a verdict?
Yes.
Do you find the accused guilty or not guilty of manslaughter?
We find the accused guilty.
Is this the verdict of you all?
Yes.
Thank you, members of the jury. You're now free to go. Please take the prisoner into custody.
After a guilty verdict, a plea hearing is conducted. At the hearing, all aspects of the case are placed before the court. The judge must give due consideration to all relevant matters placed before the court. When drafting sentencing remarks, the judge takes into account the facts and circumstances of the offence. This includes the maximum penalty that can be ordered for such an offence, as well as any aggravating and mitigating factors. The judge also considers the offender's age, if they have a past criminal history, if they show remorse, or if there's any surrounding circumstances that may increase or reduce the sentence. The judge may also take into account victim impact statements, as well as submissions from the defence regarding the need for leniency. How long do you think Justin should be imprisoned for?
Justin James Moore, you have been found guilty by jury verdict of the crime of manslaughter. Alcohol may explain your actions, but it certainly doesn't excuse your actions. And for that, Mr. Moore, you must face the consequences. The Strathmore family have lost someone they love because you, Mr. Moore, lost your temper and acted out in an immature and cowardly way. The court takes into account the offender's age, cooperation with the authorities, and lack of criminal record as indicators for rehabilitation. However, the lack of remorse shown by you, Mr. Moore, is a big cause for concern. There's also a clear need to deter other young men from engaging in this type of violent, unprovoked behaviour and to avoid similar tragedies from happening in the future. Accordingly, for the crime of manslaughter, I sentence you, Justin James Moore, to 8 years imprisonment with a non-parole period of 5 years. I also strongly recommend, Mr. Moore, that for your benefit and the greater community's benefit, that you complete anger management and alcohol addiction programs while in custody. Remove the prisoner.
All stand. This court is now adjourned.
The judge determined that a significant term in prison was the most appropriate punishment for Justin.